there's a lot of really good teams in the West. I mean, I still think they probably can sneak into the play-in game with their team. You take Donovan Mitchell off the Cavs, especially with Darius Garland and Evan Mobley being out, they're probably a lottery team, and like that's like honestly giving them like a lot of credit. Um, Donovan Mitchell's averaging like 29, 7 assists, and like six rebounds on like around like 50-ish and like 37 from three over that span. Like bro's literally been going nuclear. Um, I've always like thought this. Even I mean, as a Donovan Mitchell fan, I watched a lot of Utah Jazz. They became like my second favorite team. Donovan is a I feel like he's a better point guard than he is shooting guard because I think with shooting guard, I feel like you can only add so much when your whole entire thing is just points. But when
Right.
it gets to the point where it's like you're not only scoring, you're not only the main scorer for your team, but you're also the main playmaker. I mean, that takes you to another stratosphere. But then also he's going back to his chops of what got him drafted. Was I mean, when he got drafted, it was like, oh, he's a high flyer who can play defense. And now he's getting back to that defense. I think he's averaging around like 1.9 steals per game. So I mean, I don't see why he couldn't be in MVP discussion, but I mean, bro's up there. I don't even know if the Cavs even really made any moves. I mean,
They didn't.
the roster's pretty good um from where they're at. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't really make any moves. Honestly, their offseason moves were pretty good already.
Yeah.
Um,
Last thing,
but I
like
mean,
this
I
trade
guess
deadline, I feel like a lot of teams made trades before like the deadline day or like before like that week getting out. Like teams had already made their move. Like, but the Knicks, for example, like they already made their move, and like other teams had already like chosen they were sticking with them, or like they chosen they weren't. Like it wasn't like normal, like where there's like a big team that's like trying to get like a huge star to like compete like right away. I mean, like even like what like the Pacers, like they got Pascal a while ago, stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, but even then, going back to like the Pascal, um, you know, I mean, trades like these they take time, especially for bigger name players. It's not just going to happen on one day before 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
But even then, I mean, the Pacers ended up getting rid of Buddy Hield, who had been on their team for a while. He had been there since Tyrese had been there. And I know Tyrese really loved him, but I mean, the whole entire time Buddy had been there, he had been requesting a trade. But like a pro, came out, still played, still loved his teammates. Um, for trading Buddy Hield to the Sixers, the Pacers got back Doug McDermott and Forkan Korkmaz, but I'm pretty sure they cut him. And they also got like the Raptors uh second round pick in this upcoming draft and a Trailblazers second round pick in 2029. But then out of that pick, the Spurs also get Marcus Morris, who I'm assuming they're probably going to cut, and a second round pick from the Clippers also in 2029. Um, but I don't know. I feel like this trade is very interesting because I feel like there's not many players in the league who are like Buddy Hield. And I know there's a lot of players who can make threes, but Buddy has made threes on a crazy like level. Like the only players who have made more threes since Buddy Hield came into the league than him are like stars who like shooting threes is their like chops. And I think that's like Donovan Mitchell and like Stephen Curry
and he's doing
and
that not
I
even as like the number one scorer.
exactly. And like I think I'm pretty sure Donovan Mitchell and Stephen Curry are probably the only two players who have probably made more threes than Buddy Hield since he's been in the league, which is insane. And I mean, it goes to show how well he not only can do what his specialty is, but then how consistent he is, which I think is something a lot of teams are looking for. I mean, the Sixers have looked like they can stay pretty even kill um without Embiid because Embiid tore his
I mean,
meniscus
they
and
beat the Cavs.
yeah they did. I mean, I don't realistically know what their plan is right now. I don't think Embiid's going to be back until like maybe right before the playoffs. Right now, they're sitting around the fifth seed in the East. But I mean, realistically for you, if you're the Sixers, and it's really close. I mean, separating them and the eighth seed is 2.5 games.
which is crazy.
But but let's be generous and let's say the Sixers can you know they can stay either the 5 or 6, keeping themselves out of the play-in. Are you bringing Joel Embiid back this season to play, or are you just shutting him down?
I feel like that'd be a
Because
lot,
realistically,
especially for someone who's coming off an injury to have to go through the play-in and everything. But I mean, at the same time, like Philly's been waiting for a long time to be like pushing for that title, and Embiid's getting kind of up there, right? Isn't he like what, like 30 something?
I think if he is 30, he just turned 30.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough spot. I'm sure I'd like to hear what Robert has to say on that, but it would be really disappointing, at least for me, for them to not go at it this year. I mean, they could always rest Embiid and see what they get. They try and like do a series without him, or like give him limited minutes, like what the Celtics did with Robert Williams. Like he doesn't need to play the play in. I feel like the Sixers could beat most of those teams without him. But at the same point, I know they have also like traded a lot this season. So like they're still working on building their team. So it's not like they've had these guys who've been playing all year together. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. Depends on how Embiid feels, really, obviously. Is like how healthy he is, and if he's ready to come back. If he is and he's confident that he can help like keep them at that same level that they were at before, then I think absolutely. But if he's even like 80%, I would chill out.
That's fair. I mean, I probably agree with that. Um, I don't know. For me, it always sucks to see a team not necessarily waste in this circumstance, but not get to use a star player one of their prime years because of injuries, because of things just not going the right way, or wasting it because they don't build enough talent around them. Because I mean,
Right.
like everything in life, you only get so many chances at it, because time is always moving, and you might be like, well, next year we're gonna have a max slot and da 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 da, but then you never know. Like there might be an injury on one of those top 4 teams that opens up a path for you to get to the playoffs that you could have taken advantage of, but you didn't because like before that's not what it looked like. I don't know. I'm always one to say I feel like you should compete until you get knocked out, just because sports is one of those things where you never know what's going to happen until it happens. Um, you never know who's going to win until it happens. I mean, I wouldn't if you would have told somebody before last season that the Miami Heat were going to make it to the finals. I don't think that many people would be surprised with that. But
Yeah.
if you would have told people at the end of last season, right before the playoffs, that the Miami Heat were going to make the playoffs, I don't know how many people are going to believe that. And that just shows like how quickly things can change. I mean, of course, I know that's a whole season of like information, but I mean, obviously, they became a different team once they got into the playoffs. I think Nick Nurse is one of those coaches that he like being in the playoffs. You have to be a master like chess player, and Nick Nurse is one of that where he's gonna switch up the lineups. You might end up playing a type of defense that you've never played all season, just because you're playing one team and his team is really doing well in this one aspect. So
Yeah.
I
You
don't
just
know.
gotta find a way to stay
Yeah,
healthy for like the
yeah. No, I
following
agree.
years. And I know people are giving him shit for like resting a lot throughout this year, but I mean, if that's what it takes for them to win, like he needs to be doing that. He doesn't need to be chasing MVP or anything like that. I don't think he needs to be worried. Just block out that
Yeah,
noise and
I mean, I don't think he was really playing for MVP. From everything, it sounded like that he was saying over the course of the whole entire like year, it sounded more so like he was going for um if anything like an all NBA team. Because if you miss the amount of games, it also goes to all NBA, which I think will be something that they probably will address at the end of this season. Because I mean, I saw a clip even of like Tyrese Halliburton talking about it, where like he was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I came back a lot earlier than I probably would have if this new rule wouldn't have been in." And like he's like, and he said it wasn't because the medical staff was pushing me, but I mean, when I know my manager knows that if I miss this amount of more games, I'm missing out on 53 million potential more dollars. Yeah, of course I'm going to fucking play. Who the fuck isn't going
Yeah,
to try to go get that extra $50 million? But then you're putting your body on the line where if that role wasn't, you probably would take that extra week to get healthy. So it'll be interesting. I I I like the rule because it holds stars accountable to not rest. But I think and I think Tyrese brought up a good point in the clip that I was watching. This rule really only affects a very players. This isn't affecting fucking Peyton Pritchard. You know what I mean? He's not gonna go. He's not getting an MVP award. He's most likely not
he
getting a
might.
6 man award. He's not going to be in an All NBA team. He's not going to be on an All Defensive team. You know what I mean?
He might
So
though.
it's like it's only affecting the top of the top players. And I understand like that's what the league's about, and that's what fans are here to see are these like top players. But then I don't know when you're forcing star players to come back before they feel comfortable. Like, are we really helping the game or are we hurting the game? Is more so my question.
Yeah, that's fair. Mm, I
I don't
don't
know. Have you liked the role?
know. No. I mean, like you said, I mean, this, I mean, eventually you're just going to push teams to like not really care about it. Because I mean, Popovich, for example, he used to rest Parker and Duncan and Ginobili like religiously. And he would like because he knew that his team was dominant, and he knew that they didn't need to do anything in the regular season or win an MVP award to prove that. But I mean, when it came to like needing to win, they were already playing at that high level. So I think it is kind of lame, and I get from like a maybe a fan style point of view where like, oh, I'm paying this money to see my star of like my favorite players play, and then I'm coming in and watching people I've never heard of instead. Same can be said for season ticket holders. Like you're like, oh, I spent all this money, blah blah, for that or the ratings. But I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, like if you have to miss him out, miss seeing Embiid for 3 days, like three games during a season or 4 games during a season, it's better than having him play not at 100% and risking being out for the whole year.
Yeah.
Especially like when playoff time comes, because I mean, like it's there's nothing more like stupid like when it's a high ranked seed that has a star player that's very hurt or is completely out, and like it's like a huge hit to their team that you're having to watch play. Like where if they were just like would have rested and not been playing unnecessary minutes and they needed to, then they could have been like at full strength. So
Exactly.
that's
I
always
mean,
sucks.
if you remember back like a few years ago with the Nets team, like James Harden was so injured on one of those teams, but he was still playing. I mean, because it's the playoffs. Of course, you're gonna like try to play, but you could just tell, bro did not. He looked like a shell of himself. Like he was just out there to just catch the ball, dribble, and pass. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like bro could not attack whatsoever. He was just completely injured, and it was basically KD out there by himself. I mean, you're only doing that because it's the playoffs. But I mean, you do that because like they don't want you to rest. There's all these things. But I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to be brought up, and I really hope the NBA looks into addressing it going forward. Um, but I guess going back to some more trade deadline stuff, we can quickly talk about my team because they made a few moves at trade deadline, and they don't
yeah,
really mean too much to for the NBA. But we ended up trading Otto Porter and Kira Lewis, and one of our first round picks is going to be whichever one is the worst one out of the Thunder, Clippers, and Rockets pick
to the
for Kelly
Rockets.
Olynyk and OG Abaji. But then we also traded Spencer Dinwiddie to the Nets for Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young.